want to give you a breakdown of these two battery power stations. These are both 1,000-watt power stations. This is the Anker Solix 1000, and this is the Ecoflow Delta 2. So they both are 1,000-watt power stations, and I want to go over some of the things I really like about them, some of the things I don't like about them, some of the things that they do well, both of them, and some of the differences they have that might suit you better to pick one or the other. First, they both have a very similar shape and size, with the handles on both sides about the same height and weight and length. One of the interesting things that you should look at when you're looking at one of these batteries is if you're using them for an RV or some type of storage situation where you're going to put this in a closet, you might want to know the orientation of that system. For example, if you wanted to slide it in a smaller gap and you wanted to have the ports on the outside where they're facing you, if you slide it in, then you might want to go with Ecoflow. Whereas if you wanted to push it up against horizontally, then the Anker is better because the ports are all on the front. So kind of some of those interesting things that you might want to look at depending on what your storage setup is going to be or where you're going to want to put these batteries if you are going to put them in an RV or if you're going to put them. A couple other breakdowns of just the power rating of these two. 1,056, Ecoflow 1,024, just overall wattage. Then the standard output is about the same, 1,800 watts for Anker and 1,800 watts for Ecoflow. Where it differs a little bit though is the peak output. Anker can output a peak power of 2,400. Ecoflow can output a peak of 2,200. Another thing that you might want to consider is how many ports you'll need to be using at the same time. So the Anker has 11 usable ports for things that you're plugging into it, and Ecoflow actually has 14 ports you can be using at the same time. Now, you do have to see what type of ports those are. So for example, the Ecoflow has more of the USB-C type of ports, whereas the Anker has more three-prong ports. So if you're going to be plugging in more three-prong things, Anker might be better. But if you're plugging in more things with cords that you're doing with the USB-C, that one's going to be more probably the Ecoflow. Ecoflow has more of those ports. These are both some of my favorite batteries because they both can expand so much. So the Anker can expand to a 2 kilowatt system. You can add an expansion battery to add it to a 2 kilowatt system. Whereas the Ecoflow, you can actually expand to a 3 kilowatt system. So you can have a full 3 kilowatt system, but you can start with a 1 kilowatt system and slowly grow up to that as your needs progress, which is really a kind of cool feature. A lot of the other battery companies don't have that, at least yet. These are two of my favorite battery companies. These are two of my favorite overall that I've tested, and I really do like them both. I would probably lean towards the Anker just because of some of the software that it has, the remote access the app has. The Ecoflow app, I don't feel like is as intuitive as the Anker app. And I really like that the Anker has the higher peak output as well as the more three-prong outlets. Those three-prong outlets are much more valuable to me, I feel like. So having that extra three-prong outlets are a game changer for me. They both charge up at about the same time. They both have a 5-year warranty. They're some of the top batteries on the market, so you can't go wrong with either of them. I would think, though, that if you're looking to get a battery of this size, that's probably going to be your ecosystem going forward. So definitely a good time to kind of see what your battery preferences are, what your needs are going to be, and continue with that. Because going back to the statement I made in the beginning, where if you're depending on your storage situation, if you're going to always be using and you're going to use the ports on the sides, Ecoflow is going to be awesome for you because you can expand that system. All the ports are on the sides like that. Then if you're going to use a system that you kind of can fit it in a little bit differently with the Anker, then that's going to be the better choice for you going forward. They're normally priced pretty similarly, but normally the Anker is a little bit less expensive, but not a huge difference.